It's crazy what goes through your head at a time like this. I can remember when I was a kid, watching the Neighborhood Wise Guys. They were something to see. Always with the flashy cars, the pinky rings, the money. Everything they did with style. Most of all, they got respect. They were this big family, and I wanted to be just like them. But the closest thing I could ever get to that life is the movies. What I saw wasn't always pretty, but it was real to me. And I soon learned that the life is not a movie, and that for real is a whole nother story.
Oh, we're ready. Hey, Benny, relax. We're all family here. You okay, Ben?
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm all right.
Remember, after the oath and everything, you go around and kiss everybody, starting with the boss. You got it?
I've been waiting for this thing my whole life. I'm not going to forget nothing.
Good. Come on. That empty chair next to the boss. Go stand by it. This is Vincent Donato.
Vincent. Patsy's the boss of the family. Frank here is the underboss. I'm Tony, I'm the consigliere.
Tu sai che queste famiglie è una cosa segreta.
Yes, I do.
È una stessa famiglia. E ci vuole uno trasuta e uno nessuta. Si tratta vivo e nesce morto.
I understand.
E questo ha qualunque modo di che cosa nostra.
I will.
Ammazzarsi per noi.
I would.
What finger you pull the trigger with?
Vincent, you must never betray our family secrets. You must never violate the wife or children of another member. And you must never become involved in drugs. Do you understand?
If the boss sends for you, you must drop everything and go, no matter what. Even if someone is sick or dying in your family, you must go. If you refuse, you will be killed. You must know a guy who's made before you introduce him to another made guy.
And don't ever go over to another made guy and introduce yourself as made.
And another thing, don't ever break the circle. If you do, and we find out, you will be killed.
Vincenzo, avete chiesto per me. Se tu pare, il segreto è nostro.
If I talk about the secrets of our life,
In qualunque modo,
in any shape or form,
tu spirito s'abbrucia da diavolo. Hai capito?
my soul will burn with the devil.
Crush the ashes in your hand.
Sa Benedict. You're one of us now, Ben. A friend of ours. amico nostro.
Io sono chi dico con mano. Io sono padre di famiglia. I am your God.
So, how does it feel to be a made guy? A soldato on a ferry.
Feels good, Tony. Thanks.
Mike, you're the youngest guy. You make the toast.
Vinny, welcome to our family.
I want to know one thing. Where's the food?
I'm Frank Vincent, the card-carrying member of GAG, Gangsters Actors Guild. What you've just seen is fiction, but not far from the truth. No one in this room has ever been made. We're actors, not mobsters. But we grew up in the same neighborhood as made guys, so we know their story pretty well. It's a story of family values, honor, tradition, respect. Values that, for good or bad, have led to an 80-year-old romance between the mob and the movies.
There was Jimmy and Tommy and me, and there was Anthony Stabile.
How you doing?
Frankie Carbone. And then there was Mo Black's brother, Fat Andy. And his guys, Frankie the Wop.
Got in trouble?
Freddie No-Nose.
How you doing?
We could be mob guys.
And then there was
Let's say we're mob guys. Why? Because we hang out in the club, and because when people walk past here and we look tough, they're afraid of us.
Thousands of people out in the street that only know Tony Darrow from gangster films.
Exactly.
So when they see you, sometimes they forget
Exactly.
that they seen you in a movie.
All the time.
Yeah, that's right. You're a mob guy.
That not all Italian Americans are wise guys.
Right.
Because you're a member of a social club doesn't mean you're a gangster.
We're here to arrest Frankie Lucasio, Sam Gravano, and John Gotti.
Not all social clubs are run by John Gotti and Lucky Luciano. When I was a kid, I grew up above a social club, and my father ran the social club. It was an Italian-American social club, and not only were workers in there, politicians, and everybody used to come in. And then once in a while, you'd hear a story like Jimmy Dimps went away, or Carmine Smash never came back from Connecticut, but that was my father's life. What went on the night before was none of my business, but I doubt anybody was ever made there.
We say made guys. What is the mob? The mob, to me, is family. That's what we did when we were acting was what my father told me when I was a kid, to respect my brothers and my sisters, respect the boss of the family who he played.
That sounds like home.
That's family
That sounds
values.
like
That's
home.
the
No,
way.
you're right.
But that's the way the Italians were brought up in the street.
Speaking about made guys, I grew up around a lot of made guys.
The environment I came from, I always thought I was going to be a mob guy. All my friends were mob guys. As it turned out, I made a few mistakes, and I wound up doing some time behind the wall. By the time I returned, I changed my mind. I ultimately became an actor playing gangsters. It was much more rewarding and much safer, too. To this day, that I'm an actor now, my friends advise me from time to time on different mob roles and how to play them.
You talk about you grew up around made guys. Now, someone told you that they were made guys. You don't really know.
Yeah,
That's
no,
what I'm
no,
saying.
do I know? No.
Right.
Yeah, I knew. I knew they were made guys.
I didn't know.
Those guns they carried, and,
Well, I
and the
never
respect
saw
they
that.
got in the
Yeah,
street,
but I never
and the
saw that.
shivers they sent up my ass every now and then,
Yeah, but I
told
never-
me they were made
but
guys.
I never saw that.
But I
If anybody believes that the mafia doesn't exist, with people like myself and Sammy Gravano and other people that have come forward about it, I mean, we were in it. We know it's there.
His name is Dominic. 5 years ago, he left the Witness Protection Program. And as
they say in life, he's in the wind. From 1971 to 1979, Dominic was an associate in the Gambino crime family in New York, the right-hand man to his uncle, Anthony Nino Gaggi.
My uncle, Nino, was basically the underboss of the Gambino family at the time. And he was a very, very powerful man. Next to the head of the family, Paul Castellano, he was the most powerful captain in the family, which included John Gotti. He ran probably the most murderous crew that's been around since Murder Incorporated.
The Roy DeMeo crew, based in Brooklyn and answering to Dominic's uncle Nino, was responsible for hundreds of brutal murders in the 1970s.
They were a killing machine. They killed more people than any other mob crew that we've come across. They had a method that they used as well to make their victims disappear.
We were literally feared by everyone in the city.
Dominic never wanted to be a wise guy. He tried to escape the influence of his uncle by serving in the army. Later on, he got married. He moved to California to pursue a music career. But like with so many of us, his childhood conditioning was strong, and he came back to Brooklyn and to life. I mean, I think we could have went either way in our childhood, because I know I was in trouble when I was a kid. I had trouble in school, I had trouble with this and trouble with that. And it's a roll of the dice, because a lot of guys I know are still in jail.
Tommy, get over here. I haven't seen you in 6 years.
How you doing, brother?
Jeez. Almighty. You look terrific. How you feel?
Watch this suit. Watch this suit.
Watch this suit, you little... Hey, I know you all my life.
All right, good.
You're getting too big on me now.
Don't go busting my balls, Billy, okay?
Hey, Tommy, if I was going to break your balls, I'd tell you to go home and get your shine box.
I was born and raised in East New York, Brooklyn. I knew the real Tommy that Joe Pesci played. And Tommy was really a sick bastard. He was a really, really sick guy.
No problem. Don't put it on my tab. Of course.
That's what I wanted to talk to you about, you know. $7,000, I mean, ain't peanuts. I don't mean to be out of order, no.
You don't mean to be out of order? Jeez, it's good you don't mean to be out of order, Sonny. You call embarrassing me in front of my friends, you know, like calling me a deadbeat, you know. You know, Sonny, you're a real mutt. You know the money we spend in this...
Come on, don't be like that.
What do you mean don't be like that?
It's funny, but many wise guys have mimicked and copied some of the portrayals that they've seen on film. From George Raft and his early portrayals as a gangster. In the 70s, wise guys in New York and around the country were giving their best Don Corleone rendition and speaking to their associates. So I think in some way, what these wise guys have seen on the screen has come into their way of life. Sometimes I think real life is starting to imitate the big and the little screen.
And I think the wise guys like The Godfather because it is probably a more humanized version of that lifestyle that Hollywood ever attempted to do. It's always the cliche side, you know, the George Raft character throwing the quarter up in the air and all that nonsense. These are multi-dimensional, multi-layered people who live on one level with their family and another level in dealing with violence in business.
One fateful day, my wife and I went to see The Godfather. For some reason, I related to the Michael Corleone character, coming back from the war and going into the family business and being a part of it. And got terribly homesick and decided to go back to Brooklyn and get involved. And like I always say, I don't know if it's in a gradual ascent or descent, but I started off just picking up some loans from my uncle, and then eventually I was asked to blow somebody up in a car. He lived, he broke his legs and stuff, but we later gunned him down in the street, and that was basically my blood right into the mafia.
Godfather influenced Dominic the way it influenced many men growing up in the life back in the 1970s. all of a sudden they saw on the screen what they were all about. This is me. This is what I'm all about.
I think ever since The Godfather, the whole complexion of the mob changed in this country, because I think anybody that has an inkling that wants to be in the so-called mob, they go to the movies and they watch us play mob guys, and they act like we act in the movies. They
don't see separation.
It's a funny irony. I mean, I meet kids every day say, my God, look how you look. Look at the clothes, look at the ring, the money, and the cars. Yeah. And they have this fantasy about being in the mob that we create on the screen.
Mr. Gotti? Mr. Gotti? Hi, nice to meet you. My name's Roger. My wife, Ann. We just came in from Rochester for the weekend, and no one's going to believe we actually met Mr. Gotti. We just got married. Yeah. Married. Get your Give him a bottle of champagne.
I think there's a psychological obsession in the American psyche with what is referred to as underworld figures. There's also a great sex appeal. The way they're depicted in movies, it's a movie, meaning it's not real. It's made for the movies. It's made for entertainment.
You know that when the light goes, you're in a movie theater, it's the illusion of reality. But then when this comes on the screen, and you're sucked in, and you're crying, and you're living this life, that's the magic of film.
The movie The Godfather was so different than what it was really like. You know, it's this honor, respect, and, you know, it's not there. It's money, it's greed, and it's killing for people that you might not want to have to kill for, but you got to do it or they're going to kill you.
Dominic learned these rules of the street from a master.
My Uncle Nino's philosophy was always make him fear you. All he had to do was talk, and people used to shake.
At 13, I was making more money than most of the grown-ups in the neighborhood. I mean, I had more money than I could spend. I had it all. One day, some of the kids from the neighborhood carried my mother's groceries all the way home. You know why? It was out of respect.
Respect begins in the neighborhood. There are Italian-American neighborhoods all over New York City. The Bronx, Manhattan, Staten Island, Queens, and Brooklyn. And it's here that young men look for respect. Some find it through hard work. Some find it through the mob. One of these neighborhoods is Bensonhurst, a proud community in the heart of Brooklyn.
We as Italians celebrate the Feast of St. Rosalia once a year. It takes place on 18th Avenue in Bensonhurst. And the whole neighborhood participates, just like one big family.
Best feast in the city. Best.
The best neighborhood in the city, too.
The best neighborhood.
I lived in Bensonhurst all my life. It's like being in a little town in Italy when I grew up. And it was just a great neighborhood, not knowing anything else. It was well protected. People kept their doors open. My mother's 91, and she still wants to live here. I have 2 children, and they run around here like they own the block. It's still a great place to live.
This is a real old pal of mine, Nicky, otherwise known in the neighborhood as Crazy Nicky, otherwise known as Uh-oh, here comes Nicky, and otherwise known as Uh-oh, here comes Nicky with a bat. Hey, those guys in OTB, there's a lot of funny guys there. There's a lot of down on their luck guys there, but they're always smiling. Who's the noisiest guy in Bensonhurst?
I was born in Bensonhurst, pre-Verrazano Bridge days, and I lived with my mother, my grandmother, my grandfather, and my uncle, and his wife. Did what everybody does in Bensonhurst, runs around the streets, and you play handball, stickball, and it was pretty normal until I was about 10 years old, and then cousins started disappearing. And I was told that I wasn't allowed to go to school, that I had to stay in the house. And the first indication I had of what my family was involved with was, at that point, it was 1957. Albert Anastasia was assassinated, and I lost two cousins, Cheech and Joe Scalish.
Dominic's cousins went down in the mob war surrounding the assassination of legendary boss Albert Anastasia. Dominic's uncle, working for underboss Carlo Gambino, was a soldier in this war.
Very soon afterward, I was allowed to go out again, and then all of a sudden, my Uncle Nino went from driving an old banged-up Chevy to a brand-new gold Cadillac.
When the smoke had cleared, Carlo Gambino had taken over Anastasia's operation and renamed it the Gambino family. Dominic's Uncle Nino now worked for the most powerful crime boss in New York.
Bensonhurst is a big neighborhood, and when I was growing up, it was probably 90, 100,000 Italian Americans. It was a big enough area that several organized crime families actually had their own social clubs, rackets, scattered throughout the neighborhood. There could be a Colombo family operation on 86th Street, and a block and a half away it could have been a social club that was run by a member of the Gambino crime family.
The neighborhood is rich in, I would say, what do you say, mafia folklore or mob folklore. You grow up with it. You hear stories as a kid, someone getting killed or something happening on every block in the neighborhood.
The movies picked up on this. The movie mobsters who didn't come from Chicago came from Brooklyn. Even Al Capone started out in this neighborhood.
Do you have a name? Alphonse Capone. Everybody calls me Al.
Your father owned a barbershop on Navy Street?
Yeah, that's right.
I know him, Frank. Gabriel Capone, nice man. If you see him, you just tell him that Johnny Torrio sends his respects.
Oh, I sure will, Mr. Torrio. Who'd tip you off on the fur heist? Nobody tipped me off, Mr. Yale.
Frankie Yale was the so-called godfather of organized crime at the beginning in the 20s with Italians. He's the one that started Al Capone. He had a place called the Harvard Inn in Coney Island on the boardwalk. It was a speakeasy, and Al Capone worked for him as a bouncer. In 1928, Frankie Yale got machine gunned in the car. It was Al Capone who had him killed. So Al Capone really made Frankie Yale famous because that's the first time someone was killed in New York with a machine gun. And he had the biggest funeral of any gangster ever.
By the way, we're talking about a very small segment of society. According to the FBI, there are some 3,000 mafiosi in the entire country, and there are some 25 to 30 million Italian Americans.
It certainly was a lot more than wise guys and gangsters in Bensonhurst. Growing up, I rubbed elbows with a lot of kids who became doctors, lawyers, cops, FBI agents.
You had a sense of community, something that seems to be vanished. It was at times tough, because there were tough guys, and at times sweet.
We all one like one big family. It's a respect for the saint, for the neighborhood, for the people. So the whole respect thing goes from your family right into the street. A young boy about 17 who had died in an accident. And people in the neighborhood, in order to show a respect to the father, they painted a mural of the son. And every time someone passes there, they'll say a little prayer.
In which you, whatever, with the community and with your family. I see you.
I didn't learn respect out of a mob film. I learned respect out of my own house, my mom and dad.
But why is it such an important thing, though?
Because very important. It's a value of life.
That's right. It's a big
value of life. You're right, Frank. Everybody has a code, even the mob, and the code is to do the right thing.
Growing up, we knew, these guys were there. They were called, when I was a kid anyway, growing up, these were called men of respect. They gave you respect, you respected them.
if you grew up in that kind of a neighborhood, it was a natural thing. We looked up to them. You know, we didn't have it. Our families didn't have it. They did, and they gave it to us. So I had respect for them.
And right there under that lamppost there stood the man, the #1 man in the neighborhood, Sonny. Everybody loved Sonny, and they treated him like a god. And in my neighborhood, he was a god.
I saw these guys on the corner, pass by them every day, going to school, going to the store. Very friendly. They make you feel at home. They joke, they laugh, they play. You'd rather go hang out with them than go to the park and play baseball. You'd rather hang around them, watch them play cards, run around the club, make them drinks. And eventually, that just evolves and evolves and evolves to where you're engulfed. And you end up choosing that way of life.
Where I used to live, there were mob guys, wise guys. But I'll tell you one thing, my mother was safe, my sister was safe, and my 3 children were safe. We used to leave the doors open at nighttime. So whether anybody has to say anything bad about them, I can't. I feel they're friends of mine, and they're pretty good for the neighborhood.
I don't think that Italian-American community profits in any way by having wise guys living next door or living in the community.
If you had a problem, you'd go over and you'd tell them, and they were there for you. Just like a regular family member. They were very loyal to their neighborhood.
The only time wise guys do something good for you is if it also does something better for them.
We try to emulate them, like the way they wore their shoes, the way they wore their clothes, the way they walked, the way they talked, because we wanted to show them, look how we look. How about us?
Hi, Mom. What do you think? Look at my shoes. Aren't they great?
My God. You look like a gangster.
Growing up in my neighborhood, there was Andy the Whip Bardello, Mikey the Trotter Santoli, and Joe Cosimilio. 3 older guys in my neighborhood that I watched as a kid. I just quietly envied these guys. They were always dressed.
Elegant.
They taught me how to dress. I was a dandy-looking kid.
We finally got our own social club.
These are great.
We called the Deuces Wild. Drinks were $1, and the jukebox and the cigarette machine paid the rent. And all we cared about was hanging out.
Young kids in their 20s. Either their fathers were a little involved or, you know, they had a legitimate business, but the fathers always had the Cadillac. And we used to call them Dadillacs because on Friday night, Saturday night, they'd put on their little pinky rings and they'd get all decked out and drive around with one arm out the window.
I was impressed with them because I didn't know any better. They had money, they had brand new cars, so, I mean, that'll get you attention.
When you're involved in that life, the dress code is real important. They call it wearing it. You know, you need a little pinky ring, and you need the Piaget watch. You know, the way you dress has something to do with having some respect. It helps you with collecting money. It just goes along with the whole program.
Being who they are and what they're about, they gain that respect. At the same time, they're feared and they're loved.
Is it better to be loved or feared?
It's a good question. It's nice to be both, but it's very difficult. But if I had my choice, I would rather be feared.
It's better to be feared because in that life, someone can love you today and set you up to be murdered tomorrow.
Looks like we got a little $30,000 envelope coming.
Good. Could use the money.
Sure. Habits. There you go. Here, shoot this.
Thank you.
Salute.
Cheers.
I went to school with a friend named Vinnie Mook. We called him Vinnie Mook. His name was Vincent Governera. And he got into a fight with my uncle and broke his nose with a hammer. My uncle waited 12 years and one day came to me and said, "You got to kill Vinnie Mook." feel like killing Vinny.
Italians have these traditions that we can't let go of. We learn it from our father. Be an honorable man. Honor the past. Honor your family. And if our fathers drop the ball, we learn our lessons from guys on the street.
In your lifetime, who influenced you the most? Who was your biggest role model?
My father taught me respect, integrity, how to dress, always be neat, always respect women, never curse in front of women, all that stuff.
A great impact on my life was my father. As a young boy growing up, he worked on the ice truck, the coal truck, raised 4 brothers, 5 sisters. Till today, 77 years old, God bless him, takes care of my mom with Alzheimer's disease. It's a piece of work, my father.
Yeah, what about you? My father tried his best, but most of the wise guys in the neighborhood were big influences on me.
Most of the guys in my neighborhood, they probably respected the wise guys more than they did their father. Their father loved them, and they loved their father. But the wise guy had more power than their father.
I made 11 passes in a row. I don't know how much money Sonny won, but it was a lot.
Like the fella once said, ain't that a kick in the head?
He would always say that the working man was a sucker, and I was going to the best school in the world, the University of Belmont Avenue. And then I was getting 2 educations, one from the street and one from school. That way, I'd be twice as smart as everybody.
Hey, kid. You did good.
Thanks.
Here.
That's it?
Yeah.
I was about 7, 8 years old. My father's brother, he was a bookmaker in the neighborhood. When I seen my Uncle Shacky, I knew I was getting $5. It was so important to me. I was a bad kid, a pain in the ass. When my Uncle Shacky came by, I was a good boy.
That's bad money. I don't want you to have that money.
Dad, earn that money.
I said I want you to stay away from him.
Dad, listen to me!
Did you hear what I said? You stay away from him.
Sonny was right. The working man he's a sucker, Dad. He's a sucker.
He's wrong. It don't take much strength to pull a trigger, but try and get up every morning, day after day, and work for a living. Let's see him try that. Then we'll see who's the real tough guy. The working man is a tough guy. Your father's the tough guy.
My father, I mean, he was a tough man, but he didn't want to be involved with my uncles, you know. He didn't want to be involved in family business. He worked in a slaughterhouse. He drove a truck. My uncle, Nino, he didn't like my father. And he basically banished him from the house under the threat of death and caused my mother to divorce him and me to grow up without a father.
I tell your son to go to school, to go to college.
You don't understand. It's not what you say. It's what he sees. It's the clothes, it's the cars, it's the money, it's everything. He tried to throw away his baseball cards the other day because he said Mickey Mantle will never pay my rent.
He said that to you?
Just leave my son alone, please.
Hey! Don't you see how I treat that kid? I treat that kid like he's my son.
He ain't your son. He's my son.
My uncle, Nino, was basically all I knew what a father to be. He ran the house, and he taught me what was right, what was wrong in his world.
I was a pretty tough kid in Brooklyn. I mean, real tough. You couldn't tell me nothing. I mean, a couple of tougher guys in the neighborhood could, but most guys couldn't. But James Cagney influenced my life as a kid. He helped me survive the streets. And let me tell you how he did it. Taught me how to walk like a tough guy. I swear to God, I loved him that much. He made me talk like a tough guy. He taught me how to look a guy square in the eye before I threw a punch rather than sneak behind him and be a yellow dog.
Oh, please, you ain't gonna slug me, are you?
Maybe not today. But I'm telling you this for the last time. When Gus comes around, he's gonna leave you some beer, and you're gonna take it.
I mean, he taught me all the things that are very important to me to this day. He was my man. I loved James Cagney. I mean, that's what got me into this business.
Can you imagine?
If Jimmy can do it, I can do it.
Nino really started to school me in the life Probably when I was about 8, 9 years old, I had an indication when I was elected class president, and I was all excited. I came home with this little button. I'll never forget, it was 2 blue stripes, and it had a yellow middle and said president. And my uncle asked me, he says, what does the class president do? And I said, well, you know, you watch the class when the teacher's out of the room, and you, if anybody's bad, you write their names on the board and stuff like that. And he said, well, then you're a stool pigeon. And he said, tomorrow go back and give the button back to the teacher and tell him you can't be the class president. It was pretty awkward for a 9-year-old to go in, and the teacher asked me why, and I couldn't tell her why. My uncle said I was a stool pigeon, so I just resigned as class president.
I think that was the first real indication for Dominic that there was something different about the Gadji family on Cropsey Avenue. It was a little bit different than the normal Italian-American family.
My father taught me how to be a man. He gave me a lot of knowledge, history, I would say, you know, and brought out a lot of stuff to learn from. You know, so if he told me stories about Lucky Luciano or guys at that time period, because that was his time period, it was for a lesson to be learned, things not to do. So he knew firsthand, and he kept us away from that. So I would thank him. I would thank him if he was alive today.
Dominic had no one to thank for keeping him out of the life, but he tried like hell to stay away.
I graduated high school and became a Green Beret and went to Vietnam for 3 years. Was wounded, won the nation's second highest award, Distinguished Service Cross, and was told by my family that I was an idiot for putting my life on the line for my country. And the only ones I'm supposed to die for is my family.
Living and dying for the family is a wise guy's lot in life. Frank Puntillo learned this from his father.
At a young age, my mother passed away. My father went to prison. My father was a street guy, a knock-around guy. He was always home, nice cars, nice Christmases. But when you play, you got to pay. My father now, he's incarcerated at federal prison in New Jersey. He's almost 65 years old, and he's got about 32 years in prison already. And by the time he dies, he'll have about 50 years in prison.
Kids who are born into the life. Now, do the fathers look to raise them as wise guys?
Most wise guys don't want their sons anywhere near them.
That's exactly right.
Don't want them anywhere near them. My father moved 3 times to make sure I didn't get involved.
My father wanted me nowhere near the street. He wanted me to get a job, settle down, get married, have kids. Because he always told me, freedom is a priceless thing. I didn't listen to him.
My uncle would never let any of his sons get involved in the life. His children were very sheltered, got good educations. He was all for them to have their own legitimate businesses, whereas in my case, I was involved on the street with them, so it was a very different mix.
Dominic saw himself as a real-life Michael Corleone, a man whose destiny was to serve the family.
That's the tragedy. Al Pacino's character was a Marine Corps hero when he shows up, and actually could have been, who knows, a senator or governor. But because of the twists of fate, ends up running the family.
Nino's plan for me was to bring me up as his successor. Somebody had to carry the torch, or you lose what you have.
It was a healthy relationship for Nino while it lasted, that was for sure. He had a guy who he trusted, who could keep tabs on a bunch of killers who would cheat him out of money just as soon as they would cheat anybody else.
You know what Johnny always says? Oh, this is America, and everything is money.
Working for Nino Gadji was more than just keeping tabs and running errands. Sometimes the work got messy.
But this ain't money, Tommy. This is friendship.
one night, my wife was having a birthday party, and Roy DeMeo came over and said, guess who I just saw on 85th Street and 20th Avenue? And he said, your friend Vinnie Moot. We went downstairs, we loaded up, we got the pistols, we put on disguises, we parked 2 blocks away, went up, shot him in the street, took the car, drove to Manhattan, took off the disguises, gave it to Bums on the Bowery, went back to my wife's party, opened the presents, cut the cake, and had a normal birthday party that night, like nothing ever happened. Now, my advice to any kid that's thinking about doing that, if you can do something like that, you shouldn't be amongst us. Because I know I still can't live with it. I still see Vinny's face.
You talk about honor. There's a very good example. We talked about guys getting murdered, guys getting ostracized. Now, in Witness to the Mob, the story about Sammy the Bull, after he beat up his partner and went to work on him, who was a made guy, they had to sit down, and Castellano gave him a pass.
Didn't he earn a lot of money for them? If he wasn't a guy that didn't earn any money, see if he'd be around.
All of a sudden now, you're a big earner, and you're making all this money for the boss. But you know what that does? That dissolves honor.
The biggest single myth about mobsters is the perception that they're men of honor. These are not guys who have any honor at all. They're guys that are in the business of making money for themselves, using whatever methods they have to. They kill people, they double deal themselves, they have rules that they break all the time.
There's no trust. There's no respect and honor, and, you know, it's just, that's the way it is. It's killing. It's a killing business. That's all it is.
When I think about my father, I mean, he was only 34 years old. He had his whole life ahead of him.
Now that's a sauce.
At least a little more wine.
Garlic?
Yeah, give me a little garlic.
Yeah, well, let me slice it up for you. All right, this is the way Paul Sorvino cut garlic in Goodfellas when he was in prison. Very, very thin.
Paulie did the prep work. He was doing a year for contempt, and he had this wonderful system for doing the garlic. He used a razor, and he used to slice it so thin that it used to liquefy in the pan with just a little oil. It's a very good system. Vinny was in charge of the tomato sauce.
In every gangster movie, there's food. Food equals home, and home equals love and loyalty, which is the only way to hold a family together. Real family or mob family.
I felt he used too many onions, but it was still a very good sauce.
Vinny, don't put too many onions in the sauce.
Friendship, loyalty, love.
That's what cooking is all about. Cooking is about love.
Right.
And love begins with Mom.
What are you doing here? Didn't we tell you a million times not to come here? Come on. Didn't I tell you to come upstairs? Wait till I tell your father.
What I thought about through that movie is I would not want my son to, you know, or my child to be involved in that lifestyle. It would kill me.
My mother, Marie, never wanted me involved in that at all. She even told me, no, he's wrong for that. Don't get him involved in it, because he's very bad at taking orders and listening to rules, and he won't abide by them. She, at that point, knew a hell of a lot more than I did about that life, because her brothers were involved in it, her uncles were involved in it, and she knew me well enough to know that I wasn't really cut out for it. My uncle was very slick about it. He didn't get me involved in that life until after my mother died.
She's your mother, she will help you wash and clean. She's your mother, she will never treat you mean. She's your mother. God bless your mom.
Yeah, it's your mama. Salud.
Tony, if you don't want me to do what I have to do,
Come on.
then get the hell out of here.
Don't break my chops, Ma.
You do what you want.
Don't break my chops. I take my shopping every 2 weeks. It's like pulling teeth. You got everything you need?
I got juice.
When I got in trouble, and I got in trouble many times, my mother always came to my aid. And she never once believed that I was guilty.
But that's what
I love her. She's the best.
Make it with the other oil, you won't taste it.
Okay. Okay. Come on, we'll get the
See,
cheese.
I'm so good to you.
Yes, Mother. You're so good to me.
Italian women spoil their sons. I think that's why Italian men have a hard time finding the right girl, because I think they're always looking for their mother. I swear to God, I do. I've never dated a mob guy, but I've been around them. I could definitely see the attraction. If you're dressed nice and you're flashing money around, they live glamorous lives. You're attracted to that. Gave them $20 each. All right. If you were somebody's girl, I mean, you got treated like a queen.
Wise guys, married or not, have girlfriends, or so-called gumaras. It goes with the territory.
It's such a natural thing with them to have a girl on the side. Like this macho thing to do. And they don't feel like they're doing anything wrong.
Oh. Thanks.
Forget about it.
That's a natural thing in the mob world, to have a gumar on the side. It's in every movie. In Goodfellas, they did it with Lorraine Bracco and Janet Rossi.
Hello? This is Karen Hill. I want to talk to you. Hello? Hello? Don't hang up on me. I want to talk to you. You keep away from my husband. You hear me?
They never really leave their wives for these women.
Open the door.
I don't know who's really getting the short end of it, the gumara or the wife.
Of all the loves of your life, who's the best cook that you had?
Well, first of all, of all the loves of my life,
Yeah.
my lovers didn't cook.
No.
My lovers made reservations.
They made reservations.
The wives cooked.
Oh, all right. So the mistresses, the gumaras don't cook.
The gumaras don't cook, and they don't clean either.
Gumaras get their wise guy one night a week. The rest of his life is devoted to his wife, who raises the kids, remains loyal, and stays out of the way.
There was a very definitive line drawn with a man and his family, the respect he had for his wife and his children. Not that he didn't have women outside of his home, but the home was sacrosanct.
They try to spare the women at all costs. They never get hurt in front of their women. They never get killed in front of their women. Their women are left out of it completely.
That segment of the mob guy, highly moral. I know that seems strange to say, but that's a very moral value. Karen came to the house. She's very upset. This is no good. You gotta straighten this thing out.
Gotta have calm now. You understand? With her, we don't know what the hell she's gonna do. She's getting all hysterical. She gets very excited.
She's wild. And you gotta take it easy. You got children. I'm not saying you gotta go back there this minute, but you gotta go back. That scene highlights this very strange set of values that these people have. It was unconscionable to Paulie that his protege, say even son, would leave his wife, break up his family. He said, we can't do this. We're not animals.
In my life, my father could have been a loan shark. He could have been a bookie. What happened is that my mother said, I don't want you to do that. So my father became a worker, and he would come home, and I remember he would come home and he would be bitter because he worked very hard all day long in a factory, but he knew that because of the love for my mother and the love for his children, us, that there was no reason to go down the other road. That was the loyalty and the love that I saw in my life, that my father said no to that lifestyle.
And for those who say yes to the life, the end result can be cruel and painful, especially for the wife.
I really don't know what my father did, but my father was hardly home. He lived a fast lifestyle. And my mother, though, the loyalty was there because she stayed and she put up with it. She really loved him. He was killed. He was shot. I was 10 years old. That's when I started looking at it a little different, because I saw what my mother went through afterwards. And she was so young. You are left all alone. I mean, there's nobody there coming to help you.
That was the tradition. The way a woman says, you're married to this man for life, and you can't get divorced, and that's it. In the code, it's the same thing. You're in this family, and you're not supposed to go against it.
You make a vow. When you make a vow, according to some people and according to most people, it's a vow for life. It's life or death.
What is this loyalty? We're going to kill them anyway. All this is for nothing.
The basic foundation of the old mob, the loyalties existed because of the economic parity and because guys kind of did things together all their life. And it just was an intact kind of loyalty and sense of unity.
Loyalty to me means everything. That's it. Just everything. If you're not 100% loyal, you have nothing. In everything you do.
Loyalty, that's what the glue is that kept them together. I don't think there's any glue anymore.
All right again. Sonny, give me the gun. Move them. Come on.
I witnessed something when I was a kid. Cops never questioned me about it. They just didn't know that I had seen something, but I would never volunteer anything. And if they did ask me, I would tell them I didn't see anything. I mean, it's things you do growing up. You don't see nothing, you don't hear nothing, you don't know nothing.
Give me an answer.
You satisfied, officer?
No, I'm not satisfied.
You don't know. We can't help you.
Yeah, I know. Your son doesn't know anything. I know all about it.
As a kid growing up, you never rat. That's a major of importance. You don't rat.
I didn't rat, Dad. I didn't rat.
No, you didn't rat.
I did a good thing, right?
Yeah, you did a good thing. You did a good thing for a bad man.
The day the arrest came down, people who you think are your friends, that you grow up with all your life, eat with them, party with them, do things with them, they rat on you. I was charged in 1992 for being part of the alleged Colombo family war. About 36 of my friends were all arrested. I was convicted of conspiracy to murder, which included attempted murders, loan sharking, racketeering, gun possession. I had 4 good friends testify against me, and that hurt more than possibly being shot.
When you have a wife who walk away from you the minute things go bad, you don't really have a marriage, do you? Same thing with the mob. You got your partners who walk away from you when you're in trouble. You don't have a mob either. Love and loyalty are integral ingredients of any successful organization.
Roy DeMeo had a bar called the Gemini Lounge. And behind the lounge, there was an apartment that I used to call Horror Hotel.
What do wise guys and actors who play wise guys do all day? They drink a little, eat a little, and hang out at the track. And when they're not gambling at the track, they're gambling at cards. And when it's time, they go to work.
I did cars, trucks, went away for it, came home, started up again. I did, figure 9 years all told. And maybe all the maxi joints in New York, maximum prisons. Then I came back to New York and went into the cars, junkyards, body shops, got my own tow truck. Then I got carried away. I thought everything in the street was mine. I started taking cars, trucks, cutting them up for parts, changing serial numbers. Thought I had a license. Some guys did stick-ups, extortion, tough guys. I had people fear me. Robbery, airports, you name it, we did it. Nobody would bother us.
Hey, Jimmy, you got anything good?
And when the cops, they assigned a whole army to stop Jimmy, what did he do?
How you doing, Joe?
He
Rick?
made them partners.
Okay. Jimmy, I'd complain, but who'd listen?
Goodfellas accurately portrays gangsters for what they really are. Men who would go out and do anything they have to do to make money for themselves. No crime is too small. No crime is too big. These guys stole $8 million from Lufthansa Airlines, and they were selling swag cigarettes out of the trunk of a car.
Typical day in our lives were, I would rise about 11 and go do 3 or 4 pickups that were close by, loan shark pickups, and come back, have coffee with Nino. We leave the house about 1 o'clock. I was his driver. I would drive him to the Veterans and Friends Social Club. Leave him there. I would run and make some more pickups. And we'd play knock rummy. And then I'd run out and make a few more pickups. I had about 40 pickups a week that I'd have to take care of. All the way from Jersey to Westchester County to Brooklyn to Bronx.
Well, when people need money and they can't get money from a bank because they have bad credit and they still need money, they can go borrow money from people off the street, and they pay an interest, which is called a VIG.
Hey, don't hit the face! Hold on, not the face!
Mr. Gazzo wants the 200 now, yeah?
I'm broke. Honest to God, I'm broke.
Mr. Gazzo says I should get the 200 or break your thumb. You understand?
Please.
Huh?
The first film, Rocky, when Stallone was going around, he was a bone breaker, and he was supposed to collect from somebody for Joe Spinell, and he didn't. He says, I'm supposed to break your arm, but I'm not going to break your arm. That's what the basic wise guy is all about. He's a bone breaker.
The type of life he lives. He goes out, he takes care of business.
You want to dance, you got to pay the bank. You understand? You want to borrow, you got to pay the man. Hey, I ain't emotionally involved, Bob. You understand? Give me some money.
About 8 o'clock that night, we'd go back to the club and stay till about 11. And Nino was held court for about an hour.
All right. Here, what do you want with yours? I'm getting down on the next.
Hey, John, who wants a bigger piece of you, huh? Your bookie or your tailor?
I'm split right down the middle, baby.
While Nino Gaggi was holding court in Brooklyn, the capo of the other main faction of the Gambino crime family, John Gotti, ran the show at the Ravenite Club in Manhattan.
Everybody has a certain amount of guys under them, a lieutenant, captain, soldier.
It's set up like kind of like the military. There's a chain of command. So for someone to see, say, Paul, they had to see Nino first. For someone to see Nino, they had to see me first.
You can compare families to countries.
The president is the godfather.
We're breaking our balls for peanuts, John.
Not for nothing, John, but the guys don't have 2 nickels to rub together. I mean, what are we doing here? Policy slips? It's bullshit.
You know, all you do, you cry like babies all day long. You bite my ass like around the clock.
When you're close to them and you work for them, they want to keep you down. They want to keep you hungry. Because if you're down and hungry, they can control you a lot more. The work I did for my uncle, my salary was $250 a week. This was over 4 or 5 years. I had 2 children, and I needed to make extra money. So I started dealing Quaaludes and cocaine. And we were selling a lot of it, Studio 54. And we were doing armed robberies to drug dealers. I started to make pretty damn good money, and then I started using it. And then I got in trouble for it with the family. There's that old line out of Scarface, you know, don't get high on your own supply, which I was.
You, Tony.
I was doing so much drugs and so much drinking. I just got swept up. And again, no excuses. My fault. But I gave up the best wife and the best kids in the world to be a creep.
Along with loan sharking and drug dealing, the work of mob guys is to kill people. There are the big people, the ones you read about, like Joey Gallo and Albert Anastasia. And then there are the hundreds of mob hits on people you never heard of or never will. To do their everyday killing, the Gambino crime family had the DeMeo crew. Most mob movies don't even come close to their kind of violence.
Well, primarily, the gang was into stealing cars, which they would send out of the country, mostly to Saudi Arabia and Kuwait.
If you pay $20,000 for the car might be worth 60 in parts, 40 in parts. If you send it overseas as iron, you make more money.
We would chop up $200,000 to $300,000 a week. So it was a big money machine. And it was a murder machine. And Nino controlled it all. So he was a powerful man.
The thing that set the Roy DeMeo crew apart from all other mob crews that I've ever run across was their ability and willingness to kill people. If a guy was a problem, they whacked him. If somebody was perceived to be a problem, they whacked him.
I was only involved with the DeMeos as far as picking up the money and being an overseer of what they were up to. My uncle didn't want to have any real hands-on involvement with them. So I wasn't involved in the killings, and I wasn't involved in chopping up the bodies.
They had a system whereby they would kill people and make them disappear. So no body, no murder to investigate.
Roy DeMeo had a bar called the Gemini Lounge. And behind the lounge, there was an apartment that I used to call Horror Hotel.
The victim would walk into this apartment, down a long hallway, and as he came into the apartment, right into the living room,
you'd get shot in the head by a silence-equipped pistol.
Chris Rosenberg would jump out with a knife, only in his underwear. He didn't want to dirty his clothes, and stab the guy in the chest, keep the blood from pumping.
What I found. Them are us.
They all carried butcher kits.
You got big trim.
Roy DeMeo, by trade, was a butcher.
Donnie's gonna help you.
And he showed them how to chop up the bodies.
Come on, Donnie. Help me fillet this fat.
Roy explained to them, but we can't cut the bodies up right away. First, we have to put them in a shower and let them hang to let the blood drain.
I was in there one day, and we were eating spaghetti, and there were two bodies hanging in the bathroom in the shower. No clothes on, throats cut. And I could see in, and I asked Roy, I said, you know, but who's in the bathroom in there? And he said, just don't worry about it. He says, they're not staying for dinner.
They would put them out on a pool liner that they had set up in the living room and go about cutting the body into 9 separate pieces, packing it up into the plastic bags.
Anthony Center, one of the crew, his relatives had a carting company, so they would call the carting company, and they would come and pick up the dumpster, bring it to the Fountain Avenue dump, and by morning, there was 30 tons of garbage on top. They got to a point where the bloodlust became so amazing that they were killing people for no reason. And when they didn't have anyone to kill, they'd kill each other.
Eventually, Paul Castellano put out a contract on Roy DeMeo. He was killed by members of his crew the way gangsters normally are disposed of. He was dumped into the trunk of his car.
Ladies and gentlemen, my dear friend, Mr. Tony Darrow.
So do you know where the largest Italian population is located in New York City? Nobody knows. The East River. I'm just kidding. I can do that because I'm Italian. Actually, I'm half Italian and half Indian. I'm a Sioux Sicilian.
There are two ways to become known as a mob success. Scratch and claw your way to the top, or learn to play a mob guy in the movies.
I'm running out of these pictures, you know. I only got 750,000 left. There's Robert De Niro, Joe Pesci, Ray Liotta, Martin Scorsese, and Mike Tyson.
Come out, Vinny. What is this? Coats. Henry, I need suits, Henry, not coats. Suits are coming Thursday. I know, but this is the middle of the summer. What am I going to do with fur coats? Huh? You don't want furs? I'll take the furs. No. Take them away. I want them. You know what we do? We'll hang them in the freezer with the meat. How's that?
You know, I'm a street guy. Yeah, I do this. I talk like that. And maybe my diction and my pronunciation is not always perfect, but I don't want the kids to think that just because you're playing a role as a mobster, that you are.
Give me one of those. Room.
Show business gave Tony a road to success. It also saved Big Mike's life.
I used to be involved with the fight game. Growing up, I was pretty good with my hands, you know. That all ended one day. I happened to get in a little trouble in a bar that I was in. And I received 7 years for that incident. That was the end of my boxing career. It was the end of a lot of things. Most of my friends are either dead or in jail. Most of them dead. And I kind of think back on that. A lot of times, there were days I never thought I'd live to see 21 years old. Who knows, you know, maybe going to prison straightened me out a little bit, I don't know. But, you know, those tough guy days on the street, they're over. About a week or two after I was out of prison, somebody walked up to me and said I might be right for a part. That changed my life that day.
Mr. Ferraro wants to see you now.
Don't touch me, ever.
You frown.
Son of a bitch! I'll kill you!
Dominic was also shooting for a career in show business, but his uncle Nino had other plans.
We were signed to Decca Records, cut a record that went real well. And we did a lot of studio work, and I was working with the Drifters and the Lamping and the Imperials, and that's what I wanted to do. I went to my uncle and told him, look, all we need is this one little push to get the record over the top. And he said, no. He said, you can't be involved in music. You have to be involved with us because the music business, it's all women and drinking and drugs.
Dominic's music dreams died hard. His future was set when the capo di tutti capo, Carlo Gambino, died in his sleep. And Gambino's brother-in-law, Paul Castellano, became the new boss of bosses. Dominic was there the night it happened.
Not being a made guy and having the boss of a family maid in front of you. I mean, that's a biggie. And it was at my uncle's house. And I lived on the 3rd floor, and I had a bird's eye view of the entrance to Nino's house. The Manhattan faction of the family was coming over. You know, John Gotti, Aniello Della Croce, all that crew. And the Brooklyn faction, which was Paulie Castellano, Tommy Bilotti, and my uncle. And the new boss was either going to be Paulie or Aniello Della Croce. And I was told that if I heard any shooting, to just kill everybody that came out of the house, because that meant that they were all dead already downstairs. At the time, being in the life the way I was, I mean, my chest was out to here. I loved it.
First off, I want everybody to know that Tommy Bilotti is going to continue as a captain. But he's also going to be my personal Doberman. Ain't that right, Tommy?
Always, Paulie. Always.
And Frankie DiCiccio is our new consigliere.
Paul Castellano was a very unique man.
Probably the most interesting alleged organized crime figure I'd ever met. Very, very bright, very intelligent, very soft, very human, very involved with his family.
My relationship with Paul was to the point where he wanted to set me up with his daughter, Connie. And I knew Paul all my life, and I really liked him. The problem with Paul is he wasn't a gangster. And he was a businessman, and a hell of a businessman.
Hey, wait a minute. No, wait, ho. Nobody's eyes are going to get ripped.
I'm ready to whack them up.
Nobody is going to get whacked. Not unless the boss of this family approves.
His whole persona was at odds with what the government alleged him to be. The boss of bosses, or the boss of the largest family.
You've been away for a while. Maybe you don't know that we got a lot of joint ventures with the Genoveses and the Columbos. The future of this family doesn't depend on a couple of loads from Kennedy, not anymore.
Paul was very tight, and one complaint a lot of family members had in the Gambino family was that Paul just wasn't letting them earn enough. They were earning the money, and Paul's cut was too big. You know, just glomming too much money from the construction industry, cement. You couldn't do anything without him wanting a piece.
While Paul Castellano ran the Gambino family back in New York, the mob was having a party right here in Vegas. This was the high point of mob success in America.
Who could resist? Anywhere else in the country, I was a bookie, a gambler, always looking over my shoulder, hassled by cops day and night. But here, I'm Mr. Rothstein. I'm not only legitimate, but running a casino. And that's like selling people dreams for cash.
Las Vegas became a mecca for the mob. And of course, what they had their eyes on was the skim.
In the 1970s and 80s, with no one looking over their shoulder, the mob skimmed money by the carload. It was the greatest heist ever invented, and it went on day and night for years.
The monies that were skimmed out of Las Vegas accounted for more cash than any other source of illicit income that the mob had. It was a wonderful setup for them. It was like machines pumping gushers of cash. But the mob got greedy. They overstayed their welcome, and people like Tony Spilotro totally screwed up and brought the heat. That's the last thing that the mob wants, and that is heat.
I think in all fairness, I should explain to you exactly what it is that I do. For instance, tomorrow morning I'll get up nice and early, take a walk down over to the bank and walk in and see you, and if you don't have my money for me, I'll crack your head wide open in front of everybody in the bank.
Tony Spilotro came to Las Vegas in 1971. He was more or less the enforcer for the Chicago mob in Las Vegas. Spilotro was a street-level mob guy, the burglar, jewel thief, a hitman. We figured him for at least 22 to 25 hits. He was a stone-cold murderer.
Listen to me, Anthony. I got your head in a vice. I'll squash your head like a grapefruit if you don't give me a name.
Spilotro broke too many rules. He buried a lot of bodies out here. He was a hothead who couldn't be trusted and loved being man about town. The mob frowns on publicity seekers, but he was a mobster who, like any other celebrity, feeds on fame.
I specifically do not know who killed Tony Spilotro and his brother, but the beating that they took was brutal. So the movie rather accurately portrayed their death.
That same year, back in New York, another big ego and rule breaker would bring down Paul Castellano.
John Gotti was a hijacker from Queens who was a degenerate gambler who saw his opportunity to go for the brass ring.
Take a condom,
filled up with fake blood, placed behind the shirt. Gun's empty. No blanks. There you go.
We don't want an accident on the set, like they did in The Crow.
You know, rub just a little bit of garlic on there. It's good.
Yeah. That guy's a loser.
I told you a year ago not to give him the money.
You told me not to give him the money.
That's right.
Break his legs. That's all. Just break his legs.
There are two kinds of justice in the life of a mobster. First, there is mob justice, where a guilty verdict almost always carries the death sentence. And if you're lucky enough to escape that fate, you'll have to face the justice of the courts.
When the movie's over, it's over. When the actors are killed in the movie, they're alive. When you play in the street, you either pay with your life or with years of your life.
The mob has its own law enforcement, if you will, system. And it's very swift and very brutal. And it's very strict. If a soldier in the family wants to kill someone, he has to request permission from his capo. The capo has to go to the underboss, and the underboss has to go to the boss.
I think at some point the system just broke down. Gangsters have always broken the rules, but they seem to have broken them with reckless abandon in the 1980s and 1990s. John Gotti broke all the rules, including the biggest rule, killing a mafia boss. John Gotti survived the ultimate crime of killing the boss, but 3 of his guys went the same way that Paul Castellano did.
Paul Castellano was in my office at 4:30 the afternoon that he was killed. He was killed at 6 o'clock at night. He stopped here to give some of the administrative personnel in my office Christmas gifts. It was a terrible shock, the assassination, to me, because I'd gotten to like him very much and got to know his family very well. We were in the middle of a trial that the jury that was sitting stated after it that they would have never convicted him of the crimes charged.
As soon as I turned on the TV, there it was. And this was the day after I saw him in court. And I felt, it was real hard to believe. It had a hell of an impact on me, but that's the life.
Once Paul Castellano was dead, taking over the crime family was a piece of cake for John Gotti.
Nobody's got to look over the shoulder here. Tell your crews to stay calm. You're the Gambino family. And don't you ever believe that anyone, anywhere, is going to cross.
Once he did that, none of the other crime families really were going to outwardly contest his selection as boss of the crime family.
You whacked out a boss without a commission okay.
Excuse me. I'm supposed to get a commission okay while my family's being blood to death. Hey, Paul, he deserves it.
That's got nothing to do with it. The rules of everybody. We survive by our rules. And now you're breaking the oldest rule of all. You're going public.
Even though the media has depicted him a certain way, if you look at that, you'll understand why he was attractive as a person. I'm not commenting on his way of life. That's his own business. But as his lawyer and someone who's championed his cause, I understand his appeal. His appeal is to the working man.
There is much less respect in the mob and for the mob because of its continual disregard of the rules and regulations that it supposedly held near and dear.
And as a result, that military structure that they enjoyed has really begun to erode.
The breakdown of the mob has made it much easier for the justice system to do its job and undercover cops to do their work.
When I introduce you, I'm going to say, this is a friend of mine. That means you're a connected guy. Now, if I says that this is a friend of ours, that would mean you were a made guy. Capiche?
Yeah, friend of mine. I was an undercover cop. I was an infiltrator. I infiltrated the mob on 3 different occasions during my career, which lasted for 27 years. I lived, ate, slept, drank, and worked for the wise guys that operated in this neighborhood. And they were involved in illegal gambling, loan sharking, narcotics, you name it, they were hooked in.
This Sonny Red's got $1 million a month with his trucks in Jersey. What do I get? Steak knives and parking meters.
We ought to hijack an oil tanker. There's a lot of money in oil.
You know something? There's a guy I know down in Florida. He says it's wide open down there.
Yeah?
I had a secretary come up to me and say to me, Frank, let me ask you a question.
The economy's moving down.
Yeah, sure. Well, didn't you feel like a rat? I don't feel like a rat. I'm a cop. I was doing my job.
The job gets results. Even a small-time snitch can be worked against the mob.
I got a telephone call from this female. She was very upset at this wise guy. We met. I watched her dial Tommy's number. She made a couple of bets. Bingo. She got even with him because not only did I take Tommy down, I took his whole crew down.
Years ago, if you're in the life, you do something wrong, your best friend will be the one to kill you. Nowadays, your best friend will be the one to rat on you.
Mr. DeChico, that is you on the prosecution's tape, isn't it?
I played a rat in a movie called The Juror. My reasons for becoming a rat in the story was I felt that the boss was going to kill me. So the only way I can get back at him is by ratting at him.
Teacher's not the boss. Do you know of a single case in which his counsel wasn't followed, Mr. DeChico?
I told you, Louis the boss. Louis gives the orders.
You mean Louis seems to give the orders, right?
Something that you just don't do. You don't become a rat. It's the worst thing you could be, is a rat and a child molester.
I hate being called a rat, a stool pigeon, and all of that, but in reality, that's what I am. That's what I did.
Dominic turned on the Gambino family after he was set up and caught by the FBI.
Well, I got arrested in New York on a extortion charge and went to Manhattan Correctional Center. And while I was in there, some friends of mine had told me that there was a contract out on my life. It was my uncle that had put the contract out. And I didn't feel I should leave 3 kids and a wife behind and die for no reason.
We made an offer that he just couldn't refuse, since the alternatives were come on board with us or be killed by the Gambino family.
What it comes down to, Karen, is we're basically your only salvation. We're going to save your life, we're going to save his life, and we're going to keep you out of jail.
And at that point, Dominic agreed to cooperate with the government, signed an agreement with us. That was the beginning step of him entering the witness security program.
There is a proliferation of informants because they're given a free ride by the law enforcement community. They're given new identities. They're allowed to keep the money they've stolen over the course of life. They're given absolution by the federal government.
I don't know how all these rats out there live with themselves, knowing that they buried somebody who loved them and would have did anything for them.
I had major feelings about testifying because the people that I had to testify against, some were blood relatives. One was the man that brought me up. They had my 90-year-old grandmother coming in every day in crutches, and all your relatives are there staring at you. And
Dominic's testimony helped convict many members of the Gambino crime family, including the Mayo crew killers Henry Borelli, Anthony Center, and Joey Testa. Dominic never did get to testify against his Uncle Nino. Right before he took the stand, Nino Gaggi dropped dead of a heart attack in jail.
I think it was stress-related, much more than a broken heart, because I knew Nino's heart, and it didn't break easy.
Well, Dominic was looking out for himself when he decided to cooperate. And I think that's what drives most people.
Everybody thinks they're tough until they're in that situation. I think it's crazy to go, you know, walk into the lions then and get eaten by the lions.
Dominic is in the wind. He's far from his roots, but I'm sure he's happier where he is today.
I have different kind of dreams about that life now. One that's recurred a few times where I've walked out of Nino's house and Nino and Joey and Anthony and Roy DeMeo and the whole DeMeo crew are all hidden under Nino's Cadillac in the driveway, and he just looks at me and he goes, "Hey, Dominic, come to hell with us."
Hey, fellas, where's James Cagney's grave?
Right down in.
The ongoing romance between the mob and the movies has shifted. Classic mob heroes like James Cagney are long gone.
Movies made in the 30s and 40s pretty much stuck to the Hays Commission code. You know, the bad guys had to get their just desserts at the end, and crime couldn't and didn't pay in those movies.
He finally got to the top of the world. That blew right up in his face.
I think we woke up to a new reality. We saw that crime pays very well indeed, and people don't necessarily go to jail for the crimes they commit.
Okay, Don. This is the take. Put this bag someplace safe. Yeah? All right.
I think mob movies have changed as American morality has gotten grayer and grayer. And the heroes, of course, became much more deeply psychological.
And then he has like these attacks, you know, like he can't breathe. It's like gets dizzy, chest pains, you know. It's like he thinks he's gonna die or something.
Panic attacks.
So what's up with you guys and all this panic attack? Who said panic? Who said panic?
In terms of analyze this, you know, it manifests itself in this panic disorder and anxiety attacks that Robert De Niro's character is having.
I'm leaving now.
Look, you see this? This is what I'm talking about. I'm a dead man. Oh.
You mother...
Today's mob movies seem to be moving away from traditional plots, characters, and even reality.
The guys in any Tarantino work, you know, where does that come from? Who are these guys?
And you will know my name is the law when I lay my fingers upon you.
It seems like the new gangster film of the next century is going to have more of that Pulp Fiction kind of feeling than The Godfather.
I think the traditional values that people associate with the mob have deteriorated to a great extent. I think at some point there was more respect, more loyalty.
You got made guys informing for the feds. Bosses are going to jail. People are getting whacked without permission. And on top of everything else, you got these Chinese and these crazy Russians to deal with. Everything's changing. We gotta change with the times.
What are we gonna get, a website?
My opinion is there will be no mafia in 10 years. There'll be disjointed little gangs who hang around in neighborhoods and probably deal drugs.
They'll never kill it. Whether it's the Italians or another ethnic groups, there's always going to be organized crime. Capitalism causes organized crime.
Is the mafia still alive? I think so. Then I don't know. Who's who now? Nobody knows who's who. Nobody wants to put their name up. Everybody that put their name up went to jail.
Even if the mob disappears, there'll still be mob movies. Like the Western, it's one of our favorite fantasies. A fantasy of the street. The old family values may be gone, but not in the movies. The truth is, We all want to be like that guy in the neighborhood who makes the rules by breaking the rules. At least for a couple of hours in the movie theater.
If my son had any inkling that he wanted to go into the street life, I would take him, put him in the bathroom, bring him 3 meals a day for a month or 2, and see how he likes. Because it's like being in prison.
Frank Puntillo gets out of prison in the year 2004. At 29, he's learned how to write his first screenplay and says he'd rather write about the life than go back to it.
Whether it's the witness protection program or getting shot in the head by your best friend or going to jail for life, it's a no-win situation. I don't care what anybody says. You know, the only one I ever knew that ever won was Carlo Gambino. And that was it. I mean, he died in his sleep, but I can't think of anybody else that hasn't paid for this one way or another.
Dominic is still paying, but he's alive and able to return to the one place where honor and respect really mean something.
Salvatore F. Polizzi. Fat mother. You had a die on us. 3 years I did over there, and he was there 2 weeks. And he was a hell of a lot better person than I was. I should have stayed in the military. I decided to go with the wise guys. Bad decision. You know. Witness protection program, bad decision. You know, I always made bad decisions, and I can only blame myself for that. I don't blame anybody else for that. My wife, I would just love to say I'm sorry. It's easy to say I'm sorry, but I really am sorry for what I did to her. That's what I regret most. Nothing else. Except that. That's my main regret in life. I lost my family over it. I figure someday I'll come back and I'll have another shot at it, and hopefully it'll be a better shot.